Okay, this stream should be live, and let's see if we can get Varun here. I'll just stream. Let's see, where did the screen go? There. There, let's just wait for Varun to join. Hello?
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm sorry for my webcam. My computer is pretty weird, so you will watching my hands.
No, it's totally fine.
Okay, so basically, I just wanted to give you the opportunity because starting with rxjs and React,
Yeah.
you kind of need to do everything from scratch yourself. I mean, you get help with rxjs, you get help with React, but the combination is quite novel. It's new.
Okay.
And I've been working on this project for like 3 months, and before that maybe like on the weekends for half a year. And
Okay.
I'll share my screen here and just give you an overview. So the current state of the product is not that, is it that version? Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, so this is the development version, and we can't do much. We can list
Yeah.
addresses. We can create a new address. And
Okay.
here is like the special sauce. And I will focus on this input field here because it's a small unit of states. So if you have some kind of input field and we write some stuff, press enter or press this button, the same action should happen. So if I just press enter, we got it here, we got it here, we got it here. So we share the state somehow, it propagates. We can write more stuff and like press escape or press this button.
Okay. And still it updates the thing.
It works. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, it's a development version, and we're redoing some stuff. So, but it should do that, and happen some stuff on like when we tab through the fields as well. You see the CSS changes. So we have some stuff happening here, but basically it's just a component, some kind of input field with 2 buttons.
Yes. So it really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that how you're using rxjs. So yeah, nice.
So basically, it was to kind of make it as a universal JavaScript. So we have all components in the common folder, and the server and client can then use the same components. Because if you have a server with some kind of in-memory state of your application that use rxjs, but you don't use the React part, you don't render anything, but you can keep the states in the memory on the server. And also when the state changes, you can save it to the database, of course. So that was the plan. Moving forward, it was a bit too difficult because when you have multiple users, you need to have each user's workspace in memory on the server and load balancing issues. But if we look here, we can just look at the client first. So like in my code, most everything has like an index.js file. And you see here, main.js. The only thing that it does here is all crates and you have some kind of selector here.
Okay.
And that selector will be used by React to know where to render. And
so you aren't using JSX for React?
yeah, we are. So this is only, we'll get to the renderer, but just like as you see here, the main is basically no code at all.
Okay.
But here, index.js, the way I'm imports happen in the index.js.
Okay.
And there's no business logic. If you look at this, it's basically this is some business logic because it's just a proof of concept. So, but if you look at you don't need to kind of get what the code does, but it basically just lists objects and calls other functions. It doesn't do any business logic, and that's to avoid will be hard. And it's really important when you use rxjs that you can unit test your stuff, because if you bind it together with React, and it's too bound together, you won't be able to unit test. And it will be so complicated to know, like if you do a complex component, if you can't unit test, you will write code for 2 hours, and then you can like render something, and it will just be terrible to find bugs.
Yeah.
That's the React. If you look down here on subscribe, React DOM render.
Yeah.
And DOM element, that's this row here.
Okay. Yeah.
So, okay. So here we get everything we need from the index.js. So we get React DOM, and all that stuff. And inside here, these are our components.
Okay.
And this is ECMAScript 6 syntax.
Yeah.
And this is like the magic sauce. This is the stream of states. So this will contain like a big object that contains all different component states that has like an individual stream of their state, and combine them together. And then we distribute it downwards. Like here, you see state equals props.side menu state data.
Yeah.
So we compose it together and then trickle it down. And this is kind of confusing and bad. And I hope that you find a way to avoid this. Because if you do a component and it's totally like self-describing, like it knows its own state, it has its own.
I know that's the best principle, right? We need to build stateless components. That's the best thing that can happen. But while building such complex things, obviously at some point of time you need to include state.
Yeah, and with React, we can always, since rxjs can hold every state imaginable, like we can always trickle down the state with props. But with rxjs, what we would like to do is kind of describe the input fields, for example, that we describe that state inside the input field, and we let it be there isolated. Right now, we need to combine every input field in our form into a combined state. That form is a part of another component. Then we need to like build it upwards. So every time we need to combine some kind of states, it will look like this. So so here we have like side menu. Is when we basically these three are the most. It holds state for their components, and here we just say combine latest, and we return this object. And so you saw like here we just return a new object. Compare maintaining the value menu, and that is like a round trip that we don't really need. And I think that MobX is doing something better, I hope.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't had time checking it out. So this is kind of the Redux way of doing it. That you props is kind of like the Redux store.
Yeah.
So you have a global app state, and then you just distribute it downwards with props.
Yeah.
So we're mimicking Redux.
Even I'm working on a React Redux app right now. So yeah, Redux actually made it quite simpler for me to understand. I was working with Flux before, but it wasn't that intuitive as Redux.
Yeah, recommend, like, depending on what you want to get out of your kind of developer journey. I mean, what I've the benefits of using React and rxjs without Redux is that you get more self-describable units. That's not. It's very easy. I mean, if I just want to remove React and try Angular or whatever inside some components. Render. So basically, here's the render function. If I just return, if I want to do some kind of toString stuff here, it would just be like function toString, and I could just like basically describe what return some string value, and I could just like describe how I should output our state render.
Okay.
So we get a really good separation from the view logic. The only bad part is that React kind of goes from the top node and spread states down to the small nodes. And the new stuff that React is doing with React Fiber, it looks like they will have a smarter way of knowing which component updated.
So you don't have to go through the entire cycle.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, and that's what should be solved for this pattern to be more useful, because there's too much glue code right now, just combining the state of every component. And I know that I'm kind of rushing through the code here, and for you to understand anything at all. But
it's fine. I'm at least getting the higher abstraction over here. So yeah.
So basically, the main part here is we combine to some kind of main application. So this should be like application state stream, basically.
Okay.
Your application, every time something stateful changes in your application, you do .subscribe, and you render out the new state of your application. So that is really simple to get started with. That's good. Also, this will be like the only subscribe that we will have in our code. There are maybe some exception, but basically, this is our only place in the code, I think, that uses subscribe. And that's really good, because then we don't have any subscriptions to manage.
That's brilliant, actually.
So if we look at one simple component then, so we had this field here. We call it Ajax input, because it's supposed to be like every time you save save a new value here, it should go do a server round trip over WebSockets. And distribute to all else. So it's kind of like Google Docs or something, that you see what other people do. And so here we have Ajax input. And again, we have an index without business logic. All the imports are here. And
Okay.
we actually skipped immutable. That's a big tip. Immutable doesn't go well hand in hand with rxjs because
Oh, I'm
immutable.
actually using immutable right now in my React Redux.
Oh, then you're not okay. So the problem then is that if you have some rxjs operators that operate over an array, like
Okay.
I think combine all. So if you have like const my array, and here you have rx.observable of one. You would just have an array of strings.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to do rx.observable combine all, I think like those that's named all are those that take an array.
Okay.
So here we could do my array, and it would work. But if it's instead immutable, is it like from JS, I believe, something like that. I'm not good at that. But if it's instead some kind of immutable, this won't work because it's not. You need to convert it first. So usually what we had to do in our code is kind of we had some kind of flow where we changed from like, so we had some kind of stream, and then we had to do map, and in like in this part, I'll actually do it. Function on map, and we have some kind of list. Here we can do return list to JS. So here we kind of unfold it from the immutable, and then we can do some other stuff here that's Rx. Afterwards, we can do array and do array. Let's see, immutable dot from JS. Kind of like that. So you have to have these like sandwiched things where if you need to operate with Rx over your list, you need to convert it to an array, then do some operations, and then redo it into immutable. And that's what we had problem with, so we skipped immutable. But it's possible. So if you have benefits, try to keep use it. You will probably be better at immutable than me. And but the reason why we didn't get the benefits of immutable is because rxjs is declarative. So if you do rxjs and it's kind of like side effect free anyhow, then what's the point?
Obviously.
So but there will be, as soon as you start doing stateful things, you will have the benefit of using immutable, that you always return a new state that's immuted. So you will have benefits. It's just, for us, the cost was higher than the benefits. And let's see, where do we actually... I hope that I'm not using... we'll see. Anyhow, so this IX input is a component. And as you see here, we import button as a shell component. So first isolate the component using other components. And that's the first goal, getting some way of combining your components together with rxjs. So I'm actually going to show you the button first. And in here, looks
Okay.
kind of the same way. And for our sake, we have like different kind of buttons. And also we're using 2 levels here. We have one button that's only the model, and the model, then it's only rxjs. Then we have a renderable layer where we can send in the model and add our view layer on top.
Oh.
So that way we can do different renderable solutions.
Buttons. Yeah.
And this is really, really simple for a button. So if I have a button, we have something called behaviors, and it's taken from object-oriented programming, where you have state and behavior. And state is just the variables holding some value. Behavior is how you change that state.
Yeah.
So in our behavior file, we use subject to do subject for every action type, for every type of way you can set the state. We have some kind of behavior for. And we split them into triggers and streams. So have you used subjects before?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Have you used subjects? So
subjects, no. In rxjs, I haven't used subjects yet.
Okay, so basically subject is just an observer and an observable at the same time. So given the code above here, I can do, as you see here, I can call press subject.next, and we actually don't need any data here. So just send in anything. That will trigger press subject.subscribe.
Okay.
So here we would get anything.
Okay.
And that's the point here, that you kind of you can produce values that go into the stream. And in our case, we don't want to spread. I mean, subjects are dangerous, because if you this is imperative code.
Okay.
If you do it like on line 7, this is imperative, and we will lose the benefits of declarative code.
Yeah.
Also, if you subscribe many times, that every subscribe is also imperative code.
Okay.
So we want to split things up. So this is the imperative. Call press trigger.
Yeah.
That will be imperative code. But every time we subscribe, every time we map over the press stream, it will be declarative.
Okay.
If you can avoid subjects, do it. But with React, the way we use the press trigger will be in our render file. We will have the on-click here, and that will call press.
Okay.
So that way you have subject, which so this is basically just like press subject next, and that's the most important thing to understand, because if you're not using React, if you use Cycle.js or any other framework that doesn't use React, they can do like from event or something.
Okay.
And they will get a stream directly from the on-click event. The issue, though, is that React uses a layer on top of the event emitters. So they don't. React doesn't use DOM events. They use their own abstraction on top of.
Yeah, virtual DOM.
Yeah. So that makes it more suitable to use subjects in your pure render functions here.
Okay.
And then when you our button doesn't have any state, because you just press them. But our AX input, if you look at the behaviors over here, focus, as easy to see here. You can focus, blur, and then you can set the value of every time you press a keyboard key, you should change the value of what's visible inside that input field. And that's set you a value. So these three are the triggers that are specific for the input field. And when we form the states, we have those focus, blur, set UI, but we also have two press, one for save and one for cancel. So if you look back here, I click here, there will be a focus, and that will trigger a stream. So we can do JavaScript things on focus. And when I click some other place, it will blur. And when I press a keyboard command and add T, that will be set you a value. And when I press one of these buttons, that will be save and cancel. So then we have all the behaviors that can change our state. And here, the first thing that we do with state is that we need some kind of initial states.
Initializing.
So just oh wait, I don't run on localhost. Let me just see it. Docker compose. I hope that it's working because it's the development, so my team might have changed some stuff. Let's see. Oh, that's the version. Okay. Okay. Test value. Oh, and now I get it's. So you see it now. Test value every time. Okay. And so you will always need the initial state. And the way we update the state is with reducers. So it's kind of like Redux. I'll shut this down. But the difference here is that where Redux has the switch case statement, we have streams. So we have these three and these two. So we have five different streams. And if you see here, focus, reducer, blur reducer, save, cancel, set UI.
So each thing has a separate reducer in itself?
And it's the only thing that we do, if you look at the save button, here, I mean, we have a button press stream, and we just call it save here. I mean, the only thing that we've done is create two button components. And then we grab the streams from each, like from the button save, button cancel, and then just call them save and cancel. But the actual stream that we're using is the same stream in both cases. So we get some kind of like instance-based action type, where like in Redux case, you only have action types on like the global level. Here we have namespaced, like for this behavior here, press. We use it twice for two different component instances, and then we call it save and cancel, because that is what it means for this component. So we can reuse components over and over again without thinking about like what kind of name collisions can we have when it comes to action types. This is a problem with Redux. I mean, Redux has a problem that you can't build on other action types. You always have the same action type, and then you can like that can lead to other action types, but you can't build, like you can't compose. So that's the main thing that I like with this. And also, we don't have a switch case. So if this file becomes too big because we have too many actions, too many behaviors, we can just split it into different files. And this is the bad part with not using immutable. We have to do object assign everywhere. And if one of our programmers messes this up, we will mutate our state.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah. So, and we will hard bug to track as well. So you will have a benefit of immutable here.
Yeah.
But okay, so basically this is something that you will get, because this is hard for you to like grasp right now. But the overview is you need in your state, you need initial states, every action type, what I call behavior, every action type / behavior will need to be transformed to a reducer somehow.
Yeah.
And that is by using map and returning a function.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You return a function so you can lazily execute the reducer. Because if you look here, the reducer takes state data inside.
Yeah.
And we don't have access to any state data yet. The state data is here, up here, the initial state.
Okay.
So when we go down here to the actual reducer, first we merge. So we merge all the reducers together.
Okay.
We use the initial states. And this can also be used like, some people like it like that.
Okay.
Same thing. But anyhow, and here's the user part, the most important part here. Scan. So scan, there's one called reduce. Do not use it, because that will only, when you subscribe, reduce waits until the stream completes. Then it calculates one single value. But for a web app, every time we make a new action, we want a new state. And that is exactly what scan does. So every time one of these reducers fires, we will get a new state return.
Yeah.
And so this is the signature stuff here. And that's something that most rxjs people learn. And I think this is from some kind of cookbook.
Okay.
And also, this is something that I had to figure out. And I would suspect that share replay would be simpler. But most important is that you have some kind of state that when, if someone presses a lot of buttons, and it enters a lot of text and stuff, and you change the state, you always want to have the latest state available. So when someone subscribes to your state, you will always replay the last state, keep that in memory. So without this, you would lose that state.
Okay.
And it would be hard to compose two states with each other in a good way. So some kind of solution, and it would be either this or share replay. The difference is that share replay keeps track on how many. It won't activate until you use .subscribe. And as long as you have one or more subscribers, it will keep the replay value. But we are making it manually here and just saying like, when we call connect, publish replay will be activated. And it works perfectly for us. If you use share replay, there might be a special case in your tests, like unit tests and stuff, where you might have a problem. So basically, this works good enough for us. That's why we use it.
Okay.
But you never need to concern yourself of the connection in a normal case. So I think that share replay would be easier to start with and figure that out.
Okay.
Okay, so now we've gone through behaviors where you trigger these from your view.
Yeah.
Let's see here. On click outside, for example. Oh, it doesn't. And now you see, I'm in the render, which is like the React part that would take these 3 triggers and also the button triggers here. And I was hoping to see, but I see that my team has changed the code a bit. So this is a bit more complicated, but the gist of it is that you call each trigger from here.
Yeah.
And basically that's it. And also, what's kind of neat with it is that here's the button cancel, the button save.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do anything like on click or anything because that's inside. It's all already handled.
Yeah.
So you actually don't.
The rxjs is actually taking care of this.
Yeah. So this is dead code. They or I made a mistake.
Okay.
So we don't even need to care about those triggers. We only need to take care of the triggers that happen on our level, like the actual input field triggers. So the button triggers is handled in its own components.
Okay.
And what's more? Oh, yeah, testing. So I would recommend that you start playing with testable code right away, because otherwise you will need to do the behavior, like you will need to do this code and state code and then get that to your render somehow. And it's too much code to do without seeing anything. So you need to like start writing tiny chunks of code and testing it right away.
Okay.
And as you see here, like the initial state is really simple to test. Like we could do just like just start with initial state, publish replay, and that would be something. So we could remove. Just have the initial state, make a stream, and export that, and then make it testable and see that it works. So you start with like really, really small chunks, and then you can just do a test of that initial state. And what I've learned is that if you have, like we're using every file we have like this here. Export default is like module exports, I believe. Do you use ESX exports or do you use like here? Have you seen this stuff before? Like how you export files?
The way you did it, export default function, that's the way you do it, right?
Yeah, okay. So you do it this. Okay, good. Most people use like common.js or something. Okay, so basically this makes it easier to test. If you don't use a create function, it will be harder to test. So right now we can import, and this is like short and create state. So it state with uppercase S gives us an instance of the state back. So this is lots of boilerplate, but you see here that I don't care about focus, blur, set UI, or any of those events. So I stop them with rx observable empty.
Okay.
That way I'm still constructing a good state, but I'm not doing anything fancy. So it's easy to stub out. And then I take, this is important. When you do tests, only take one value or the minimum value that you need, because you will deal a lot with states that never complete. And if you do .subscribe, you will have a memory leak in your tests. So, so this will never end the subscription. And even though the tests finish, you will have a memory leak.
Yeah.
Take one is important.
Yeah.
And then just the normal stuff, do some equal or check whatever. And then you have made your first test. The behavior streams, usually you don't need to test this. I usually only test that the right things exist here. And you can check that they are the right, this is type of function.
Yeah.
And that these are, no, I don't have that code. You can check it somehow that the construct, that it is unobservable. It's possible to check that this one is unobservable. And just check the types. That should be enough. And
I actually use prop types very often in my tests for checking type checking.
Yeah, I mean, you mean prop types as in the React?
Yeah, React prop types.
Yeah. I think we have like this.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah. So that's basically we do similar stuff with rxjs as well. But I would recommend that if you have a larger system than we do, I think actually that a type system is needed. That's something we don't have time right now, but I would personally recommend TypeScript or Flow. I guess that TypeScript is easier because most people that do rxjs, I mean rxjs is written in TypeScript, because you get the problem right now is that here the function blur takes some kind of data and just puts it forward into the stream. We have no way of confirming what this data should be or should not be. So you need to write, if you don't have a type system somehow, you would need to have a test that perfectly describes what's allowed and not allowed. And that will be a lot of tests. And when your designer wants to use blur as a trigger and write the actual React component, it will be hard to tell the designer to just go and check the unit tests for documentation. The thing that we mostly do is do this destructuring. And you know that there should be some variable called isFocus, and all other variables are disregarded. Then you get some kind of light handling. But if there is a trigger that will happen many times, this will create a new object every time. So that will be an issue. And that's something that would be solved with a type system. All right. So that's basically it. I mean, it's just an overview. I get that it's totally confusing and doesn't answer a lot of questions, but Uh, hopefully,
It's fine
when you
actually. Yeah, I got a idea of the higher abstraction and how to actually go about it now. So
yeah,
it
and
gave me a
also
great
like
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, good. Because I mean, hopefully, what I'm hoping for is that you solve issues that we haven't, because it's a
Yeah.
new area. Uh,
Yeah, obviously.
but what I would consider is also checking out like what are the pain points or like solutions that you really want to focus on. And for us, it was kind of the ability not to know the action types to start with and communicate
Okay.
events more like fluently, that we can have 50 million buttons and we don't need to have any action type strings with switch cases that separates what happens, and more like
Okay.
isolated, that each component we can have a component that doesn't have any view, that we describe some kind of
Okay.
state core. So our component
Yeah.
is the state and behavior, and the view layer is just on top of it. And
Okay.
that's something that I think is the best side effect from using rxjs right now, that we can totally
Yeah.
do parallel, like going to React Native or just doing something, some command line stuff for or some product for like blind people. It won't really be an issue.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's a really good strength. One
Yeah.
more thing. If
Yeah.
you start doing things like, here we have two cards. Like if I go
Okay.
back here, you see there's only one column, adresser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I press here, I got another column.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're dynamically adding components. And that's another stage. If you do that and want to do it with rxjs,
Yeah.
it's a totally different level of it's much harder. I mean, here we have
Okay.
a linked list of components. So when I pressed
Yeah.
here, I need to
Yeah.
dispose of this one somehow.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
need a stream. We actually need a stream of components to render with
Okay.
their states. So handling both the
Okay.
state and the component with streams, it will be difficult. So if you start doing
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
uh, first try to just do it imperatively to start with
Okay.
until you feel comfortable. And
Yeah.
just give me a call. I mean, if you start doing components described
Yeah.
with streams, then check with
Yeah.
us, because we're doing that right now and solving really hard problems. But
Okay.
it's hard to get help because you have too much abstract code. So even Doris, which is he's amazing. He always helps us, but
Yeah.
it's hard getting help when you start doing these like components that you should be able to multiply on screen and getting lots of stuff dynamically.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
much simpler if you only have, like, you click on that button, you open up this route, and you know which
Yeah.
components you should show. That is much simpler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is.
But we have solved the basic problems that arise. So,
Okay.
but we can look at that another time, because we're
Yeah.
not done with this yet. So, but
Yeah.
that's it. That's all I have. So, if you have some
That, that,
questions,
that is that's really great actually. So right now, the web app I'm working on, it's a booking app basically. So what I do is I want to dynamically show the remaining seats from my database on this, real time maybe. So what I had actually thought was I can do polling, but it would take up a lot of my resources, right? Because I'll be running like I have already like 100,000 users right now.
yeah,
So if all of them at a time want to check, how many remaining seats are there, should I book or not? And that's going to be chaotic on my server. My database cannot actually handle that, right? So RxJS gives me a really good option because I can do away with the polling. I can use the observable create a WebSocket and just listen on to it and keep on updating my React component.
Have you decided on,
that's what
the WebSocket framework? Will you use?
I haven't.
So,
So I
because if you have,
yeah. What would you recommend?
I mean, the only alternatives is like either go with socket.io, which is not WebSocket. It's in the best. It hides the transport layer and mimics WebSocket. And in the best case, it will use WebSocket as a transport layer. But if it's not possible, it will fall back to polling. And every time a new browser connects, it will let Socket.io decide the transport layer. But I mean, the documentation isn't really good on any of the tools because we're using Socket.io and another called WS. We use WS to our Internet of Things clients because it's our clients. We know that they will be able to use WebSocket. And we use Socket.io towards the customer side because we don't know which browser they have. And I'm too bad at WebSocket support in the browsers and what kind of customers we will have. So check your statistics. Like if you can support WebSockets natively, that would be better. Because every abstraction layer on top, that will hide some bugs and it will be harder to work with. But Socket.io is stable. It's just not that well documented. And also, there is another thing that when you do stuff over WebSocket, you don't get the automatic reply back. So if you do a REST request, you get like a 200 success back. So most often you will like ask for the latest and you get the result back with a 200 OK, or you get like a 401 result or something that tells like you're not allowed or whatever. That is something that you need to do yourself because WebSocket is bidirectional. So you just fire something off and you need to keep track of like what's the ID that you sent of the event that you sent off. And then you need to get something back with the same ID. If you don't use the ID approach, you might get something where like you send a couple of events and you get the wrong response back. So you need to kind of do stuff more manually with WebSockets, which is something that you don't think about. So everything that you send to the server needs some kind of success or failure event back. That's something that you need to solve. I don't remember if this. Otherwise, WebSockets is fantastic. It's so great to not have polling. So,
that's the way forward, I guess. So
cool. All right. How? I mean, is it like what do you think will be the hardest thing for you when you're going to do this? Like, what's the risk?
So I think you actually the subscription part and how to desubscribe maybe.
Okay. So will you use
that would be the most tricky.
Will you use rxjs on the server or on the client or both?
So I'll mostly use it on the client itself because mostly the client.
Good.
On the server, I have a very stable Tornado server running on. So that's actually very stable. It's a REST API built on Tornado in Python. Okay. So that's
Let's see. rxjs. I have Ben Lesh did an article on unsubscribe. Here it is. So let's see. Can you find the chat on this I'm sharing it in the group chat.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's good. Because as I said, if you have a bunch of components on your client, and you kind of like compose them upwards together, you'll just have one state stream anyhow. And maybe if you do like client-side routing, because we don't do that very much, because we have a really fancy solution for it. So, but basically, if you do client-side routing, then you might need to unsubscribe and resubscribe. I don't know.
So we are actually doing client-side routing right now. So that's why I figured we need to have subscribe and unsubscribing.
Yeah, but basically, I think that's the only place where you should have subscribe and unsubscribe. Otherwise, you should just combine and use switch map.
Okay.
So switch map care. So you will have and if you were to build a router, you would use basically switch map, where you have your application state happening, and then you change to another application state because you're on another route. And then when you do another route, you will get a new one as well. Then you would just like have that as a stream as well. So you have a stream of streams.
Okay.
And every time it fires, you change to the new stream and you dispose of the old automatically. So that's what the article will describe, like how you can do higher level mapping care of the unsubscriptions for you declaratively. That way you can do one unit test and then it's fine, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I need to get going here, but keep us posted.
Thanks a lot, Marcus. Actually, it was really helpful. So thanks for taking your time out for this.
It's just great to help you. I'm in big depth from like all the help we get from the Gitty channel. So just pay forward. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Definitely do that. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Marcus. Take care.
Same to you.